Greetings and salutations. This is the voice of Loquacious of Herd, bringing you his afterthoughts on My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Season 6, Episode 24, titled Top Bolt. I heartily suggest you find and watch the episode itself, sans commentary, before proceeding with either this Afterthoughts review or viewing my full reaction, which is hosted at the link in the description. Be warned, this Afterthoughts review will contain spoilers for the episode. With that out of the way, on to the review. My initial prediction was on target. Not that it was all that daring or surprising a feat of foretelling. We did indeed get a third of our map episodes, and it did indeed involve both Rainbow Dash and Twilight Sparkle. The episode title, as most of you likely know, is a reference to the movie Top Gun, a 1986 action drama involving elite flyers serving aboard an American aircraft carrier. A trip out of active duty and back to teach at the Naval Aviator Flight School, eventually returning to active duty. The protagonist is an overly reckless, excessively cocky, real chip-on-his-shoulder fellow, a man with something to prove. Accidents ensue, nerve to fly is lost, subsequent risky missions are undertaken, and confidence is restored, leading to the protagonist choosing to return to flight school to teach full-time. If you have already seen Top Bolt, and certain elements of the above sound familiar, well, what can I say? My Little Pony is very skilled at taking stories, themes, or story elements and ponifying them. We open with a bit of dialogue to set the stage. Spring training is done, Rainbow Dash is heading home for some good times with friends, and Spitfire is preparing for a week of drills, training, and testing for the newest batch of applicants to the Wonderbolt Academy. I wonder, is Rainbow Dash still weather manager for Ponyville, or is Wonderbolting now her full-time job? Regardless, who runs Ponyville's weather when Dash isn't around? Well, whoever it is, they had an extra week of duty, because on her way home, the cutie map calls. Rainbow Dash and Twilight Sparkle are heading back to the Wonderbolt's headquarters to deal with a friendship problem there. Also, as I noted in my review, I was pleased to see Starlight Glimmer was at least present with Spike in the castle while this was going on. Even if she isn't playing a part in the action of the episode, I do like seeing Starlight around in the backgrounds. At the Wonderbolt's Academy, Spitfire is unaware of any friendship problems. She's overseeing quite a few aspects of the whole Wonderbolt thing, but guidance counselor isn't part of her job description. Spitfire is more than happy to give Dash and Twilight free rein to handle whatever friendship emergency has drawn them there. Focusing on the newly arrived Wonderbolt Academy prospects seems like an obvious choice. They're what's new around the airstrip, and this friendship problem would seem to be something that's only now cropping up, and the new arrivals are an interestingly mixed bag. The first one I wish to note is Angel Wings. As you may know, the folks working on My Little Pony are awesome. Not only do they produce this awesome show for all of us to enjoy, but they occasionally do good and charitable works for the fans. Angel Wings is the result of such kindness. This character is the OC of Alexis Lexi Huel, and Lexi got to voice Angel Wings for the episode. All of this was facilitated through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, a non-profit organization which arranges to fulfill the wishes of children ages 3 through 17 who are suffering from life-threatening medical conditions. So kudos to all involved, and my sincere wish that things go well for Miss Huel. Now, Twilight and Dash soon decide that the best course of action is to help these new prospects, Twilight handling the academic in-class teaching, Dash handling the personal coaching in the air. Twilight is delighted to be acting as an instructor, and she's brought a Pegasus version of Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, the Vitruvian Pony, perhaps? Regardless, she's brought it along as one of her visual aids. Dash isn't the only pony who's totally done with the whole lecture thing, though. We are introduced to two ponies of importance for this episode, Sky Stinger and his wing pony, the adorable Vapor Trail. I had already noted Sky's smugly overconfident expression, and I had disliked it immediately. This cocky to the point of arrogance, thinks they're hot stuff sort of showboat character that Sky represents is among my least liked character archetypes. What remained to be seen would be if my initial distaste for the character would be mitigated and eventually overcome, as was the case with, say, me and Rainbow Dash, or if he'd merely solidify my dislike for him, as was the case with, say, me and Lightning Dust. Vapor Trail, on the other hand, was the sort of shy, good-natured, energetically helpful but quiet sort of character archetype that I'm immediately drawn to. Given my first reaction of "Sir needs a good backhand" and "Madame seems too nice for her own good," I was worried that the dynamic between those two would result in my growing quite peeved with Sky by episode's end. But no, right from the get-go we see that Sky does care for, and genuinely likes, his friend Vapor. She may have a bad case of near hero worship focused on him, but there's still room around his ego for Sky to really care for her, and thus Sky's worry. He's confident, perhaps a bit too confident, that he's an awesome flyer, but he's concerned that Vapor isn't, and wants to recruit Twilight and Dash to help her out. Those two suggest a free-form flight session so they can determine what action needs to be taken. That flight session was quite revealing, and it turned the whole dynamic between Sky and Vapor on its head. Excellent job with the bait-and-switch show. Sky's the overconfident one, and boy is he overconfident. He may have the finesse to pull off some amazing maneuvers, but he's not nearly the strong flyer he believes himself to be. It's Vapor who's the monster of endurance and strength in the air, and this whole time she's been carrying him. She's literally the wind beneath his wings, all without his knowing. Talk about strength, Vapor doesn't just fly herself, she also directs gusts of wind and breezes towards her friend Sky so that he will always have an assist when going into any of his fancy maneuvers. Admittedly, this focus on Sky's aerial acrobatics leaves her with precious little focus to tighten up her own fancy flying tricks. With a solo flight segment as part of the entrance exam, both these friends are on track to wash out. Sky because he unknowingly lacks the power to perform properly. Vapor because while she has power to spare, she, like her namesake, always drifted in Sky's wake, relying on him to lead her somewhat clumsily through their joint maneuvers. Alas, Twilight and Rainbow Dash immediately leap to cross purposes when it comes to how to deal with this problem. Dash feels strongly that a large portion of flying is intuitive, that it comes from confidence in your own abilities. Shake that confidence, make a Pegasus second-guess themselves in the air, and suddenly it's all overcorrection and undercorrection. Flying ceases to be an effortlessly graceful activity and becomes a confused mess of feathers and crashing. Twilight feels the risk of harming confidence is necessary in this case for several reasons, among them the need for Sky to focus on his training so that he can build up the power he'll need by the end of the week. Not to mention that this sort of secret keeping between friends isn't just a flight problem, it's a friendship problem, and Twilight and Dash are here to deal with the whole friendship problem thing. Again, nicely done, show. We've got a conflict devoid of malice, where the solution isn't immediately obvious, indeed, where contradictory approaches almost seem required. Good arguments to be made on all sides, and a situation spiraling towards tragedy not out of ill intent, but because ponies have been trying their best to do right by their friends. And sometimes life gets complicated and messy, and things don't work out the way you want them to, no matter how hard you've been trying. I like these sorts of stories, and I feel My Little Pony tells them well. Twilight and Rainbow Dash confront Vapor Trail. With her, they try Twilight's approach, informing her of the nature of the problem and offering aid. From Vapor, we learn more about the evolution of her and Sky's friendships, why the two of them are the way they are, and how they both made it this far towards Wonderbolthood, and why it might all come crashing down now. Vapor takes the revelations well, and the resulting plan, to Rainbow's delight, is built around Vapor's assessment of Sky's ego. Said ego is massive, of course, but fragile, based on a very shaky foundation of lies. Lies Sky doesn't even realize are there. If it all comes crashing down now, it would be devastating for him. So getting him to train without letting him know what all's been going on seems to be the best course of action. At least at first. Cut to a duel montage. Vapor applying herself to solo training with Rainbow Dash, and gradual improvement. Go Vapor Trail. Sky slacking off hardcore under Twilight's tutelage, and, as a result, making no progress at all. Boo Sky. Then it all comes to a head. Seeing that Sky is getting nowhere, and that in his ignorance he's preparing to ditch the training he'll need to have any shot at his lifelong dream, Vapor just blurts out the cold, hard truth. Sky's nowhere near as good as he thinks he is. His successes to date have been the product of Vapor's subtle and consistent aid. At first, Sky doesn't believe it, but when he tries to show off without her help and falls, his whole world comes crashing down with him. Worse, his mind jumps to the fear that all of this humiliation was somehow planned, that his belief in his friend had been misplaced, that she had been setting him up for the cruelest joke of all. So off Sky runs, not listening to Vapor's own pain-filled denials of any wicked intent, and leaving her crushed as well. A painful moment, and one which leaves Twilight doubting the necessity of her style of dealing with their problem. But Rainbow quickly steps in with another truth. Absent the will to train, Sky was doomed. And as long as he truly believed he was already a strong flyer, he would never have the will to train his strength. It's no fun, but sometimes things have to fall apart before you can put them back together. And sometimes the choice, as Twilight and Rainbow Dash have now experienced, isn't necessarily between good and bad, but between bad and worse. More valuable life lessons. So, then, on to putting things back together. Twilight has a remarkable and telling exchange with Sky, where she advocates the idea that you don't need to be a natural with something, whether flying or friendship, to eventually excel at it. With practice, hard work, and the help of good friends, you can go far, natural gifts or not. Season 1 antisocial Twilight became the Princess of Friendship. And Sky, well, if not a Prince of Flying, he could still be a Wonderbolt. Even factoring in the substantial aid he's always gotten from Vapor, Sky has got plenty of skills to build on. Sky listens and takes the lesson to heart. He commits himself to training. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash finds Vapor, and with surprising tact and delicacy, seriously, kudos Rainbow Dash, she handled this scene so well. She helps Vapor Trail embrace the idea that Vapor herself, sans Sky, is a strong flyer and a pony whose personal dreams and aspirations need not be tied solely to a pony she's followed behind for all her life. Vapor can do things she enjoys, and she can do them for no one's benefit but she herself. One thing Vapor has learned to like is the whole flying as a Wonderbolt thing. Where once her only motivation to join the Bolts was so as to stay with her friend, now she wants in because she enjoys flying as one of the Bolts. So, on to the reconciliation. Brought together by Rainbow Dash and Twilight, Sky and Vapor are given some valuable perspective by these two of the main six. And with the realization that none of the trouble was really intended, indeed that the trouble all came about because they had been striving to help one another in their own ways, the quarrel was put behind them, and the friendship restored. Sky has a new appreciation for his friend Vapor, as well as his own real strengths and weaknesses. Vapor has stepped out of Sky's shadow to fly beside him as a friend and partner, not as a follower and clandestine assistant. Things fell apart between them, but they got put back together better than they were before. Naturally, with each cheering the other on, Sky and Vapor excelled in their remaining training and passed their entrance exam, gaining the praise of Angel Wings along the way, in addition to securing lead pony positions for the both of them. All of this leading to an adaptation of a well-known quote from the movie Top Gun, "You can be my wing pony anytime." Friendship mission accomplished. My worries about Sky thankfully laid to rest. They did a great job of turning his character around within the scope of this single episode, and in giving the even more objectionably boastful portions of his character, which he seems to be growing out of, an understandable and forgivable grounding. Lastly, Dash and Twilight fly back to Twilight's castle. just in time for Rainbow Dash to be summoned back to Wonderbolt's headquarters yet again to deal with some sort of Wonderbolt emergency. Ah, poor Dash. Once again, life teaches her that the reward for work well done is yet more work. If you wish to see my full reaction to My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Season 6, Episode 24, titled Top Bolt, the link, as I mentioned earlier, is in the description. Feel free to leave any comments or likes for that reaction here on this Afterthoughts review. And until next time, as always, kindly remember, y'all are awesome. Stay awesome.